guest today survived the Civil War, for 7 years, and I can imagine. And she had fun with it. Actually, she had a play. Reflects her life and her community, Somali community's life under Civil War in the 90s. And her play has been all over United States, and I know probably out of United States too. How you have fun in the Civil War. You still can have fun under aimed at the pandemic. It's really hurting everybody, and also hurting the immigrants and people of color even more. She's a playwright, she's a performer, and she has been performing this How You Have Fun in the Civil War for years.
It's a wonderful conversation. I think more than anything, it's important to be with community right now, and to be continuing to talk and to discuss and to share what is awakening, what is coming up for you. First of all, my name is Ifrah Mansour. I think there. So I'll just start about the place. So, what is it? Unfortunately, when I was almost 5 or 6, Somalia civil war broke out. Specifically in the capital, which is where my family lived, and so my family had to flee to a safer place, and because I was too young and did not know what was truly happening, and at that time I was a sheltered child. I've only seen our neighborhood, our house. I literally thought that we were going on a family vacation and just adventuring, and for me, I've seen things that I would never see otherwise. But meanwhile, in my parents' mind, their world was upside down. They were constantly in fear for their lives, for our safety. But because of childhood's innocence, somewhat I was sheltered. And I feel like that is the power and the blessing and somewhat the curse of the childhood innocence. You are too young to understand this conflict that you're living in. I remember times of wanting to get frustrated because I wanted to play, or I wanted to stop walking because my feet hurt, and my parents were like, no, you're going to keep walking. And I think that is something that we are all experiencing right now. Like the deep need to sort of the deep need to sort of give up things that we need just for safety. And that is something that I feel like now refugees around the world have in common with everyone else. And I feel like before we were having hard time of getting people to imagine the plight, the pain, the weight that refugees carry through their pain. And I think that's what everybody's experiencing, this collective pain of having to not be able to do what you want, whether it's your fancy job or whether you having to see your parents. I know a lot of folks cannot see their parents, and I think that's a weird commonality that we're having. I think we're going to have a deeper understanding of each other's lived experiences and pain. So I'm just listing all the blessings that, that's in disguise with this pain and with this deep human disconnect. And I think my work is truly about that. I'm really interested in finding the unique commonalities that people have that have such a diverse lived experiences. For example, my niece right now, she is 5. She's exactly how old I was when I was surviving Somalia's civil war. And right now she is just thrilled. I think ecstatic that she gets to have both of her parents. and she doesn't have to go to daycare. She's like, she wants to work with, like, she wants to play with mom every hour, even though mom has to work. And what's funny is that my sister now has to like hide her workspace in the pantry. Sometimes she does her work in the bathroom. And then sometimes, like right now, my sister is at a place where she's telling both of her kids, she's like, mommy's not mommy from like 10 a.m. to, to 4 p.m. Mommy is somebody's staff. Don't call me mommy, don't talk to. So it's kind of really interesting. So for me, like, that's the unique, interesting levity or humor that comes out of struggle. And I like to pull out the humor that comes out of just life struggle. For example, within the Civil War, there was one auntie that was newly wed, and she had all these fancy furnitures, right? And while everyone is fleeing with their lives and their children, this auntie was like, I am fleeing with my fancy fridge, couches,
The mattress.
dishwasher. Exactly.
Yeah.
And right now, most of us are in this like really interesting epidemic like thing. I think humans do weird things when we are in crisis. Like, for example, like everyone is either thinking about corona or like, where am I going to get my toilet paper, which is the most oddest thing. The lightest thing in the most.
Yeah. Everybody is going
I've heard
hiding.
of.
You're right. This quarantined and lockdown and people staying home and redefining their life and priorities and relationship and what is meaningful. And people baking bread now and cooking and talking to each other.
Yes.
So, but your way of telling the story is going around and talk to the people, and with social distancing and all of that. And I think everybody's zooming now, and I think telling a story
Except
through
you.
Zoom will be a very odd thing. How would that affect your creativity and your artistic juice here?
I feel like artists are human connectors. That's literally our skill set. And and for me, like my work, human connects in real time, in real space, like amongst with each other. Like people come to see my play as strangers, and I think they leave as friends. Um, and for me, I wasn't able to do that. Like right now, I'm avoiding my emails because it is filled with cancellations. Um, and so for me, like all of my performance work has started. One funny note is that the play, what is it? How to Have Fun at a Civil War, has a puppet that plays the mother figure. The mother figure used to be a puppet that was an elder, like it had a storyline of being an elder. That puppet is actually all the way in in Arizona right now, because I was supposed to do a show there in March, and I shipped the puppet early. So now my puppet is social distancing against me, my elder puppet.
Do you mind if I show some of your
Yeah.
play?
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, you found a clip.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit what you're doing here.
Yeah, so this is a clip from How to Have Fun in a Civil War. That's the puppet that's social distancing against me all the way in Arizona while I live in Minnesota. Um, I think I know folks call this play a one-woman show, but I'm like, it's not. It is. What is it? It is me and this elegant puppet. It is a multimedia piece. So I interviewed 17 other Somali folks that had various connection to the Civil War, and I wove all of those stories along with my stories together. And with this puppet, we tell this like multi-generational story about healing, about coming together, and about sharing the refugee resilience that we often don't see on stage or in cinema.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a different way of telling stories, and also you get the audience involved.
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
usually that's the audience are part of the story and this
Mm-hmm.
engagement and interactions.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you you are now where?
I'm
Minneapolis?
in Minneapolis. Yeah.
So are you are like everybody else, locked down
True.
and try to cope with this with your family? What is your daily life look like?
My daily life looks drastically different than it was in February. Um, my life now consists of being at home, going outside for long walks, and I go to Minnehaha Falls where there are all these ducks, and I watched. So the whole spring, I got to experience how they like court, and apparently I'm learning love from ducks. How love works in
Yes.
ducks.
The,
So there might be a new play coming out. I so now I'm like all fascinated about nature and what is it? The ways in which spring is very important. Spring is this almost like what is it? What is it? Rebirth from what is it? From the beautiful death and which we'll call it hibernation of winter. So it's just been really beautiful as nature goes through this, identity change of rebirth, and we go through this feeling of stagnation, this feeling of like stuckness, and I think for me, like I'm seeing it as another way of rebirth as well. Um, and it feels it's one of those, I'm going to say something that people might not understand. This is a weird blessing. I think it's being forced to meditate. It's being forced to put on the tension for your own good, if that makes sense. Um, and I really think most of us are forced to reflect on our ways of living, including me. I was just thinking about all the airplanes I would have taken, all the places I would have bulldozed through, all the people I would have connected, because we all got used to this culture of hurry, hurry. I gotta get to this. I gotta get to somewhere. I gotta get that. Because we live in such a capitalistic world. The more we stress, the more we get, apparently.
yes,
And we still
consumer culture, and you have to express your feeling by
yeah.
buying something or going to the shopping
Mm-hmm.
mall. And I think people
Yes.
start figure out this all this luxurious brands
Mm-hmm.
and Nike and BMW and
Yeah.
iPhones and Victoria's Secret. This all was a scam, and
Yeah.
they can live without it. But you know, this pandemic brought the best of us, of some, and also brought the worst.
Oh
You know,
God, yes.
racism and
Oh God.
really. So you know, you as an artist,
Yeah.
you alluded to the fact that you try to find the goodness and the humors
Mm-hmm.
of a
Yeah.
tragedy, which is an amazing
Mm-hmm.
thing and hard to do.
It's this art, but it lives in a way more elegant form
I
on
see.
Facebook if you want to grab it to show the eye.
Yeah.
So I'm making a small little puppets that have a sentence or so, almost a haiku text, and I'll be creating more of that. And I think that's my Corona art.
Mm.
Um, I think was it yesterday or this week? Unfortunately, there were. I'm like a beloved and avid public transit taker, and that's one of the things I had to give up. I love being on train. I feel like I'm being transported through time. That's one of the things I had to give up for the greater good.
Yeah.
And I saw a video. There's a video that's floating everywhere right now, and it's two boys that are extremely harassing a person that looks like of Asian what is it of Asian descent. It looks rehearsed. It's something
Oh, I see.
they definitely have done it before, as a stunt, as a prank, and I think unfortunately, this is a bit predictable when people are in crisis. I feel like we show our true colors, and our true colors could be of good or of evil. And like for me, like going back to the to Somalia's to civil war time, we were helped a lot by these nomadic Somalis that usually the rest of the country would have been putting down in the past. And it's just been really interesting to receive kindness from people that everyone has been putting down before. And similarly here, I feel like in America, we are seeing either people's kindness or people's cruelty. Um, and this is why I feel like it's important to continue talking with one another. I think with crisis, we also disconnect. There's the feeling of like, I need to be by myself. I need to collect this. I need to not associate with certain people. I might lose this. I need to get this. So I feel like people's resilience are being activated, resilience to do good or resilience to do horrible things to others. So it's even more important that we use social media to speak against these horrific like when you watch the video, like it like I had this like deafening feeling, and I was deeply wishing that I was there because I take the bus almost every day. My actions would have a severe consequences to your life, and your actions will have a severe consequences to my life. And that's something that we've never actually gotten before, or at least we didn't get to see it. I mean, that's the thing of like having to see the import. This is why I feel like I'm so glad I'm an African. Like from the minute you are born, you are grilled to the ideology that you're part of a group. Like you
Oh,
are
I see.
part of a group
Yeah.
and your action has consequences to the Muslims, to the Somalis. And there are some blessings out of that. Because of that, I feel like maybe the Somalis were doing a better job of social distancing, I hope, because we deeply see how our actions impact other people. And I think here, like you're right, here in America, and I think most of the developed world, you're from the minute you were born, you're told the idea of like individualism. You are on your own. You can sue your parents. You don't have to give them any money. You don't have to, you take care of them. And I think we're seeing the downfalls of that right now. And although the Somali, what's really unique is that for us, like we have like multi-generational families living together. That has been a really an interesting thing for our community to solve, because everyone lives with with their grandparents. If my grandparents were alive, we would be living together right now. So that has been a beautiful internal community learning and growth for us. So we're really seeing our true colors here. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting because there is a concentration of the physical community for the Somali community,
Yeah.
and I was wondering about. I was worried a little bit about the crowdedness of like the riverside. Those two tall. And it seems like there was nothing really horrible. It seems like people are aware of this and looking after each other and surviving this lockdown and quarantine. So this is wonderful news that you articulated, that people look at their behavior has a consequence on their family and their community.
Consequences, yeah.
That's
And I think more like I was raised by my grandmother, so most of us, especially here, if you're blessed to have your parents and you're a parent yourself, your parents would be raising your children. So there were times I used to call my grandmother mom, because that's the role she filled in. So we have deep connection and love for our elders. And as communities that are coming from like an oral storytelling backgrounds, our grandparents are like our historians. And so if there's a virus that comes and it's threatening our history,
no, you gotta
we're
protect
gonna
them.
do whatever the health officials tells us. And I think that's where everybody's mindset is at. They're like, I want to save my grandparents, or I want to save someone else's grandparents. I'll do the difficult thing. I'll let go of my graduation walk. I'll let go of prom. Right now it's Ramadan, right? Most of us are like,
Yes.
what kind of Eid are we gonna have? Should we even bother buying new clothing? Because with Eid, you buy new clothing and you show it off, right?
No, no, that's not Ramadan.
Are we
It's
just gonna wear
interesting.
PJs and go to Zoom?
I think Ramadan couldn't have come sooner in this pandemic, because
Oh God.
usually in Ramadan we quarantine ourselves and we stay and we have
Yes.
i'tikaf, we pray all the time, and
Yeah.
and stay home, and we don't eat much, presumably.
It's true.
So we are ready for
Yeah.
this in Ramadan.
Yeah.
And we
In a weird way, it feels like as Muslims we're trained, aren't we?
yeah.
I mean, most of the time people are shunning us, right? We have to stay within our own blocks.
Yeah.
In a weird way, we were somewhat trained for this. And then
Yeah.
Ramadan, you're right, it's the ultimate shutdown. It's the
Yeah.
ultimate isolation to sort of like build up your karma bank. Most of us have
Exactly.
been like killing
Investment.
our karma bank, right?
Yeah.
You take Ramadan, you're like, all right, Allah, let's get to know each other again.
I have 11 months, done bad things. I need to hurry up. I thank you so much, Fran Mansour, as she is a playwright and performance, and she been performing a play. It was a wonderful play. I've seen it a few times. How to have fun in a civil war, and that she actually experienced that in the 90s, and her family, and it was telling not just her own experience. She was very young at the time, but also the experience of civil war told by her own community, and using puppeteering and poetry and video and multimedia. It's a wonderful way of telling the story, and I hope you continue with that, and we see you soon with a new project and a new art, and keep telling the story.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here, and please, what is it? Share kindness. Yeah.
What a concept.
Yes.
That's very delicate.
I wake up earlier than my brothers so I can sit in the bathroom and do my new favorite secret hobby. Sniffing cigarette butts that my dad told me to throw away yesterday evening. I love when my dad visits. He smokes a lot and brings me a play dog.
We stepped outside of our house. Whoa! Even more gun noises. So many people already on the streets. Maybe it's that holiday that my dad told me to a while back. So other people are leaving their homes too.
It's people that had a status that came here that don't know how to stay. We are our own culture, so our history is passed down through words and meaning stories.
That's not what stories are about.
You just follow what they put out. I want to make sure that they're gentle, listening, and patient. You need to tell stories. I know it's going to hurt, but you need to learn the past. I have to say that they have hope for the future.
I will be very sweaty, I will be nervous, my heart will be beating. It's really
We cannot heal unless we educate ourselves.
I see healing inside.
It just started the conversation. It put it out there so that people can share it like the tea.